like to say Happy New Year to all of you. Just there sitting by your screen, looking at what we have in stock for you today, wondering if the program will come up. Yes, the first edition for the year 2019. Thank God that you're alive to see this day, and you are just there seated glued to your TV set, and you are anticipating what we have in stock for you today on Africa Discourse. And I am Wilson of Marshall. Today we'll take a look at last year, talking about the year 2018. In retrospect, Africa as a continent, and of course setting a roadmap for this year 2019. If you ask some persons, they'll be like, well, not so bad, not so good. We are just there, while others may just be of the opinion that it wasn't smooth at all for the continent last year. Talk about politics, talk about economy, talk about religion, talk about security, just name it. Some persons of the view that Africa is still lagging very much behind. Why some optimistic personalities will tell you, despite these challenges, eventually we will get there. What were those events that shaped our continent, Africa? Talking about the year 2018 in retrospect. Before going into that, it may be interesting to know that Zimbabwean President Mnangagwa has, yes, reduced the workforce. Talking about the civil servants by 3,000, slashed. He did that. He said he wants to really rescue the economy of Zimbabwe, and those civil servants are among I will put it now, the loopholes that money just to leave the economy unaccounted for. So he choose to lay off 3,000 civil servants. We've not heard from the labor unions yet. Are they in tune with this? We'll bring you that story and maybe later talk about it, maybe in course of this 2019. What about DR Congo, the election? Right now, there are some quarters saying that the election was marred by irregularities. Why, from the governmental point of view, it was smooth. No need to worry. It was free, fair, credible. But the big question now is, how come the result hasn't been announced? Yeah, and for that reason, Donald Trump chose to send some troops down to Congo to put an eye in that region to forestall any form of disturbance that may emanate in course of the announcement of the results. So DR Congo is shaky right now. Well, smaller parts also of Africa, they have their own fair share of good and not so good event in the year 2018. Well, I'm not alone in the studio. I choose to go around some of the news making around the African continent. With me here in the studio, I have a political analyst, public affairs commentator, both local and international politics. He is well grounded. Jeremy, welcome. Henry Adima, the other surname is so long. I wouldn't want to bite my tongue, sir. Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure.
Happy New Year. It's a pleasure having you here with me, sir. I will appreciate your coming. That other long, could you please pronounce it for me? Erimyokai.
Yes, I'm from the Edo Central.
Edo Central.
I'm from Michigan.
Okay, good. Erimyokai. So I will not forget it by just there. Imprint, yeah, it's there. Don't mind me, we have to pick up some words. So, 2018 in retrospect, Africa as a continent, people have various opinions, people have various views. Some are positive, while some are not too positive. Some are disheartening, some are heart-rendering, while some will make you leap for joy. If you take a look at the year 2018 and Africa as a continent, how far did you think we fared?
Anyway, certainly and obviously, we didn't get to where we desired to be, but certainly we were not where we have always been. We made some progress, but maybe not in the magnitude that we expected to have made it. There are some skirmishes here and there. It has to do with part of human existence, especially when it comes to power sharing. Like we just talked about the Congo Democratic Republic. The issue that has actually been out there is seat-tight syndrome. Even when the people you are leading have told you they are the ballots, but yes, you have contributed your quota to the development of our nation, but let's try and give another a try. Maybe you have run out of ideas, then let's inject new ideas. But because of, we just have this mentality in this part of the world, that it's either me or nobody else. As if there's no one individual that is about a monopoly of knowledge or monopoly of ideas or how to get this done. Not until you give another a second chance or another chance, you may not really know that there's someone out there who could do it well. By and large, you could say that it wasn't too bad, but it wasn't fair enough.
Right.
I'm sure that if we allow things to play out, allow the will of the people to prevail, obviously we will get there sooner than we have expected.
Right, we'll get it sooner than we have expected. And let's zoom in on the political terrain in Africa. It was this year that the long-serving president of Zimbabwe, talking about Robert Mugabe, was shown the exit, and we have a new president in Mnangagwa, and it's also this year after quite a long time since the how will I put it now, the tenure of Kabila elapsed in DR Congo. They choose to conduct the election. It's been marred also with irregularities according to international observers, but from the government perspective, they are just doing well. And don't forget also Nkurunziza. Yes, he too wants to remain in power. Do you think that this etitism, you talked about it, the mentality of African leaders in politics, do you think it affected us positively or negatively? How can we really get out of these shackles?
There is no good saying that it has impacted us negatively. When there are crises, it has its multifaceted effects. To affect the economy, it will affect politics, to some extent too, it will affect religion. When there is civil unrest, business transactions will not thrive in such an environment. Those who want to invest will be skeptical because they are not too sure what is going to become of their investment. No man will invest in a turbulent environment. That is on that. Then two, the home front. When there is crisis, lives are going to be affected. But for every crisis, it's always accompanied by violence. And when there is violence, either lives are either maimed or lives are wasted. Properties that took people years to acquire are massively destroyed. So it's like the Hamatan fire that does no man no good. So the earlier our leaders begin to realize that for every crisis, there's always a setback. And most of these setbacks are things that you cannot recover. For instance, taking the Democratic Republic, for instance, where they're having crisis now. Shops that naturally would have opened for a given period of hour, they are compelled to quickly make a brisk business and everybody shuts down the shop.
Yeah.
That does not help business. It does not help growth. It does not help the economy. So the earlier our leaders know that leave the scene when the ovation is loudest, it's better for himself, it's better for the immediate family, it's better for the nation at large. If of a truth the leaders are there for the interests of the masses, I don't think you will need to impose yourself on it.
So for what you're saying, right, the leaders are not there for the interests of the masses. Is this self-interest?
Oh, my brother, you can say that again. You can say that again. Just ask yourself the question. There's an open seat. Take, for instance, Edo State House of Assembly. Both of us are from the same constituency.
Yes.
We know the needs of our people. I know the needs of my people. You know the needs of your people. We are serving the same community. And we say one person has to go. Must we kill ourselves to go and do that? When we know that both of us, we know the needs of our people. So it's either you go there to represent my people, or I go there to represent my people. But because the way politics is played in this part of the world, is me, myself, and I. You find out. The statistics are there. The results, the findings are obvious. The man you know yesterday as a near nothing person, once he gets to the seat of power, the next 6 months you will see him. You'll be amazed at what he has done. Where did the money suddenly come from? And because those who are already there, they have tasted the seat of power and they have seen the perquisites that are there. They do everything humanly possible to ensure that they perpetuate themselves on that seat. Whether the people benefit from it or not, that is not their interest. Ask yourself, of these our leaders, how many of them have taken protest to the National Assembly, or that's where they represent their people, about the pensioners? Not one, not to my knowledge. Wow. But I'll say, colleagues, these are elder statesmen. These are the first citizens of this nation. Is this how they plan their tomorrow? We were supposed to plan their tomorrow for them.
All right. Now, we're still dwelling in on politics because so many things happened the year 2018, where we get to see the likes of Robert Mugabe being shown the exit. But one man remained. Talking about the president of Cameroon, our neighbor here. They conducted an election. According to results, though it was made according to international observers, that it was made with irregularities. The man is still very much there.
How many years has that man been there?
Good question.
Those who were not born when that man rose to the seat of power, they are already parents today.
Yes.
The question I keep asking people, when you feel that you are the one who has the monopoly of how you can get your nation out of a seemingly quagmire, then when you suddenly die, does the nation run up? Have you seen any nation that whose leader sit tight on the power and said this, I am the only one that has idea of how we can run this nation? If he dies, does the nation die with him? No one. It just boils down to the fact that we want to keep amassing, but the sad thing about it is the children who never knew how this money was ill-gotten, by the time their father passes on, because they didn't work hard for it, can manage it.
Wow.
You find out, of all those nations, how many of their children live in those countries. Once they notice that there's upheaval, they take them to safe haven, where they believe that their lives are secured, they are protected. It's a very sad thing, and but you know one sad thing about it too. Even those who seem to condemn this act, by the time they find themselves to the seat of power, they will tend to repeat the same thing.
Same thing.
And I'll tell you how it happens that way. Because there are people who are feathering their nest through the activity of the man that is there. As bad as the leaders are, to be downtrodden, but there are people who are still saying that it's either this man or no one else. Because if there's a change in power, look at how it works. Bear in mind that all the ministers, most likely, they are all going to change. They are going to lose their jobs. And they are going to have another set. The man may, on his own, he have a genuine which want to actually relinquish. But it depends on the type of information that the man is disposed to. The reporting officer, he continue to pretend to him that all is well there. I was listening to one of your sister stations a few weeks ago, and it was talking about the time OBJ was the leader of this country.
Yeah.
And that there was an article. It was a killer article because they get the newspaper for him, and they decide what the man reads. And they would have previewed all these dailies before they would pass it to their box. But when they said that, they expunged it so that he couldn't get it. So the only way he can get is maybe through friends. You say, Rankade, did you saw the article of the day? Say, which I know it's not in my true that. Otherwise, they make him hear what they want him to hear. They make him know what they want him to know.
All right. Now, still dwelling on the political scene. After the exit of Robert Mugabe, a new man stepped into the helms of affairs of the African Union. Uhuru Kenyatta, right now, he's in charge. That happened last year. Do you see any new thing this union can do or would do to make it more vibrant? Because people are like saying that the AU, so to speak, is like, now in quote, a toothless bulldog. Do you see Kenyatta giving that bite to the union?
It can always be like that, my brother. Wow. You find out who constitutes the AU. They are the African leaders. And their own is to protect the interest of their own. Whatever resolution comes out from the AU, and it has to do with the masses, and the one that has to do with safeguarding or securing the seat of the sitting leader, the AU want to do everything sure that the interest of their own is protected. Because just find out who are the members. They are members of members nations, leaders of member nations. So anything outside perpetrating or protecting the interest of their own, don't expect anything different. And that's the truth.
It's going to be the same old story, no new innovation.
Same old story. Same old story. But have you asked yourself a question? All these years, how come that even treaties, even resolutions that are reached, how come that we have not been able to actually walk the talk?
Walking the talk.
Walk the talk. It's not possible. Because it's a case of we all are in our local parliament, they say now we. That is what he said. Now we bros. So you don't look at it, you look the other way around. Pretend as if nothing is happening.
Wow. Pretend as if nothing is happening. Now, if it come down to still we're dealing more also in Africa, talking about the politics, well, like saying that we have interference from without. The Western nation, European nation, the interference of these nations, even talking about Asia now, the Chinese, they are interfering so much in Africa. Even last year, because we look at 2018 in retrospect, we get to hear US trying to war Africa, China trying to war Africa, EU trying to war Africa. It's like Africa seems to be at the center of it all. Do you see any productive venture coming out from this one?
Do you know why?
Why?
You see, we have made ourselves, our leaders have made us just a walking tools in their hands. As big and as large as the Africa economy is, taking Nigeria, for example, because we're a dependent nation in terms of goods and services, they see Nigeria and they see Africa as a very viable market. It's just like when Europe came to Africa, you know, and what was their interest? Their interest was on the goods that was in Africa. I keep wondering what kind of leaders we really have, and what kind of nation we tend to bequeath to the yet unborn. That of all the OPEC nations, Nigeria is about the only nation that imports refined products. How does that sound to you? About the only nation. So we take our crude off here, we give it out as giveaway, because I like no value has been added. We take it out there, value is added, and they return it to us. I asked a simple question. I was in a forum and I asked somebody, how much will it cost this nation to turn around our refineries? Then put it vis-a-vis how much the quantum of money that has been spent in subsidy. We are not talking about importation. We are not talking about the capital fight. What we are talking about now, we are looking at how much has been spent on subsidization of petroleum products. Side by side, what it would have cost us to fix our refineries. You know, it will never be fixed. I tell the person, go and quote me, go and write it down, mark it. It will never be fixed. Even if the money is there, it can never and it will not deliberately not be fixed. Because people have become billionaires via the importation of petroleum products.
So then what about the weighing of African nations, whether by the Chinese, by the US, by Germany, these great countries? It was like...
Because they are interested in our oil, which is the mainstay of the nation. Oil is the mainstay of Nigeria. And because of that, and they know that we cannot develop ourselves. We refuse to develop ourselves. And they just come, they give us a few carrots here and there. And
so for what you're saying right now, what we are going through is deliberate.
As
Africa, as a continent, is deliberate.
Don't say deliberate. It's self-inflicted. What we are passing through as a nation is self-inflicted. When you say self-acquired problem, self-acquired. We have lost leaders who had the interests of the nation at heart. Not in this and present day leaders. And what is difficult to actually change the present crop of politicians we have is because they have fortified themselves, permit me to use the word, with ill-gotten weight. They have fortified themselves, dipping their hand into the national treasury by hook or by bend. And because they have solidified and they have made me and you poorer by the day. So when a hungry man, an average hungry man, I may not be right to say all the hungry men, but there are some who say I have integrity. If I die, I die. But there are some who will want to compromise over a few naira notes. The man who has not, the landlord is threatening to throw his properties out. And somebody comes and say, is that your problem? 50,000 naira, he pays the rent. I can assure you, that man has enslaved himself. That man whose rent has been paid is ready to do anything, to die for that man that have brought him out of that seemingly regrettable situation. But who proposed there in the first place?
All right, from your own analysis, if you want to rate Africa as a continent with Nigeria as 100% part of, politically speaking, over 100, how did we fare last year?
If we want to talk about rating Africa's performance,
politically speaking,
in year 2018, considering the elections that were held, considering the skirmishes in a few countries, we've got that we still have a long way to go in terms of having to allow the will, the popular will of the people to prevail without having to circumvent it. You say, Nigeria didn't make up to 25%.
Wow, so that is a fail mark.
It's a fail mark. But definitely, we made some progress, like I said. Made some progress, for instance, what happened in Zimbabwe. We could say we made some progress. There was a leader who believes that Zimbabwe begins and ends with it. And the point it was turned into a family affair. Even when the man felt that it was time for him to maybe retire, sort of. But he didn't want the seat of power to go far from him. He still wanted to say that the strings can still be manipulating. That's what happened. Where a few ones, not we won't say for the general interest of the nation per se, yes, and because people were already fed up, and they felt that was going to be a good way of cycling the people up, and said we need to change the economy around. Then we need to wrestle power from this government that's almost becoming a family affair. That was why they took it. That was because you see there was no unrest. When it happened, there was jubilation. That is to tell you, that was what you saw that day was a reflection of the mind of the people. And there was no protest. People say, yes, we've long, like saying, this is long overdue. What happened was celebration.
So that was
what happened in Nigeria some years ago.
So that was the only positive trend we have politically, the Zimbabwean experience.
When you come back to our neighborhood, we look call that a positive experience.
Paul Biya of Cameroon.
Yes, we look call it a positive experience. Obviously.
But according to the government end, it was smooth, free, fair, and credible Cameroonian election.
You see, you cannot be a judge over your own matter. I'll be a better mirror to you. And that is what the traditional observers does. When they come to observe, they are the mirror with which you can view yourself. Because those who are in government, even you have reporters from government, they want to do things that will perpetrate the interests of the government that they benefit from. So that is why anything they say, you just pick with a pinch of salt. So the report from the traditional observers, or even the local observers, is a better yardstick to measure the true position of people have.
All right, you've heard them. The opinions of the observations of international observers in our electioneering process is what we'll use to measure Africa as a continent, politically speaking. Take a look at Cameroon. Paul Biya, there was an election conducted, yes, landslide, he won. But the international observers, they have their own report saying it was mirrored. It wasn't free, it wasn't fair, it wasn't credible as against the report of the international observers and opposition. Now let's come straight down to DR Congo. Yes, it's on right now. The government says it's free, fair, credible election. Smooth. But the opposition and international observer, they're saying, look, it's not what they are saying. Because right now, calling results is becoming a huge problem. Is it free and fair? Because I want you now to score Africa in 2018 retrospect. How far they've gone politically. If you now also go down also to Zambia, remember Zambia, they have their own squabble politically speaking. If you go to DR Congo, the same thing. If you go to Mali, they have their own shaking also last year. If you go to Ivory Coast, oops, it's like Africa as a continent just keep reverberating through politics without really knowing the intent or the main purpose of democracy. Go to the north, you see Al-Sisi there, still president of Egypt. Moroccans also, a little bit of complaints. Tunisia, that's what we're coming to next, where a journalist, yes, it was done by another graduate at first, he set himself ablaze that led to the Arab Spring. But last year, towards the end of last year, 2018, a journalist also set himself ablaze in Tunisia due to the harsh economic situation and repression in that country. Now, you be the judge. According to Henry Adima, he said 25% politically speaking for Africa in the year 2018. Don't forget our own election in Nigeria because it's part of Africa, believe it or not. Take a look at the Ekiti, the Ondo, the Osun, you know, on those by-elections. How do you feel about it? You know the story as we do. When we return, we'll take a look at Africa, economically speaking, 2018 in retrospect. How did we fare, economically speaking? You've heard about the political angle. When we return after this break, we'll take a look at the economy. We'll be right back. Do stay with us. Thank you so much for staying tuned. This is Africa Discourse. If you're just joining us, it comes up every Monday from 1:30 to about 2:30. We're going to talk about issues making the rounds in this great continent of ours, Africa. We're taking a look at the year 2018 in retrospect. We've gone through some countries, the way the elections were conducted, politically speaking, according to my analyst, Henry Adima. It says it scores Africa, politically speaking, last year, 25%. Are talking about the various activities and events that played out itself in course of various countries conducting their elections. So many complaints, too much complaints, oppression, repression, irregularities characterized most of the elections conducted in Africa as a continent. Well, let's take a look at the economy. Let's move straight down to Tunisia. Remember the Arab Spring? How frustrated unemployed graduates choose to set themselves ablaze because of the harsh situation, economic situation, and that led to the Arab Spring, that led to the Hosni Mubarak of Egypt. Yes, Morsi came in, he became authoritarian, so to speak, or a dictator. He was removed, and Al-Sisi is there. But when it got to Syria, and that was where the strong man Assad said, no way, it's not going to happen, not on my watch. They are still battling. So it's like it cut through the Arab Spring, and Africa also is part of, some part of Africa, and part of Africa is part of the Arab Spring. All of a sudden, towards the end of last year, a journalist set himself ablaze in Tunisia. Still the same old story. What is really happening in Africa as a continent, economically speaking? Still in Africa, we get to hear the Chinese giving out loans. Now, they don't call it loans anymore, it's grant. Of course, there is always a surety, all right? There's always a collateral. If you don't pay, if you can't pay, this belongs to us. Economically speaking, begging your pardon, how did we fare as a continent last year?
Well, you see, before now, we're talking about slavery, human slavery. But Africa, we have entered into another form of slavery. See, these grants we talk about, they are not Father Christmas. I tell people there is no free meal anywhere in the world. Even in Freetown, there is no free meal. There's always a catch somewhere. You see, the economy of Africa, when we started, we're talking about the struggle for Africa between US, the advanced world, and China. Have you sat back to ask yourself, why the sudden interest? Is it a show of brotherly love, that they love Africa so much? No. For every policy that is made by this interest nation, there's always an economic gain. There's always an economic consideration for every decision that is taken to invest in Africa or to give a grant to Africa. there's always an economic gain. I told you earlier on, why are infrastructures not working? For example, like the oil and gas, why are we not making much progress? Because there are people there whose interest is to ensure that nothing works in this side of the world. And regrettably, there are ready hands who are ready to compromise and collaborate. That is what makes the difference. The American will say the America first. I think that's the slogan Trump came with.
Yeah.
But in this part of the world, part of the continent, we don't have that. Africa comes first. Is what really comes to the table of my family. That's the sad thing.
Family first.
Family first. Family first. I asked somebody, hopefully we'll be talking about China. Have you sat back to ask, how is China making it? They took advantage of the population, of that population. They took advantage of the population.
Yes.
Nigeria will have the population. Of what economic benefit has our population been to us? Absolutely nothing. Rather, the population is becoming, it's like we are sitting on the gunpowder. A hungry man, they say, is an angry man. The writer said that the rich, they are not able to sleep because the poor, they are awake. That is why the rich man is not able to sleep. He's losing his sleep because the poor man is awake. And what makes the poor man awake? The man believes that man must survive. But we are not justifying it by any measure. But the man just feels, for how long will I continue this way? So let me say I can help myself if the government will not help me. Well, because of that, even the innocent one, they are caught, the crossfire, they are caught. So when you look economically, we have not done well at all. I still come back to Nigeria. What makes economy tick? What makes economy of what develops an economy of a nation is the small scale industries. They're the ones that makes economy tick. But how many of the small scale economy have thrived in this nation? Even those who benefited from the amnesty thing, they learned one form of trade or the other. How many of them are able to put to bed that which they have learned? The artisans. For instance, the iron bender, the stylist, the barber, those who do aluminium things, all these jobs, they are power-based. I've said in some other programs that if this nation, our leaders are sincere about taking these idle hands off the street, just one thing they need to do. And if you have one agenda, that one agenda at the end of the day will resuscitate all the sectors. If I were to be PMB, the only agenda I would have had is power. Second agenda, power. Third agenda, power. Everything begins and ends with power.
Right.
And when this is done, okay, let's take it this way. We are importing so much on fuel. Diesel has gone so high, 250 to 270 naira per liter, depending on where you are getting it from. Why the sudden demand? Why that huge demand for diesel? Because virtually all the industries are running their industries on generator. So if power was functioning in this nation, there will be less demand
on the use of generator. When there's less demand of use of generator, obviously there will be less demand on diesel. So when there's less demand on diesel, there will be less importation on diesel. Remember that we're importing with foreign currencies, right? Then when you develop power, the man who fishes, who is an iron bender, or the man who does aluminum, that has a small generator too, or the stylist, maybe the generator doesn't use diesel, using just the PMS. He needs that generator to be able to run his small shops. So when that is done, you discover that there's so much pressure on the need of PMS. Not just only for our cars this time around. We're saying if you want to know the demand for PMS for our generator at home, from 5 p.m. when workers are returning from work, just visit 1 or 2 filling stations. Any car that drives into that filling station must bring out a generator from his boot.
Wow, interesting.
Now, we are talking about improving on the well-being of the family. ITV, I know for sure, they are not making provision for your extra cost to run your generator at home. You can't tell them to the management, you know, increase my salary because I have to get some comfort at home for me to be more efficient in my job here. But out of the little you have, you make a provision to fuel your generator at home. That is eating into the budget of the family. You understand? The thing, it has a ripple effect. So I said, once you take power as your only agenda, concentrate on power, fix power, every other thing will just fall in place.
All right, fixed power, every other thing
will just naturally just fall in place.
The African continent 2018 in retrospect, that is what we're really focusing on. We've dealt with the politics and now we're talking about economy, and he's talking about power because he has to draw an example from this good country of ours, Nigeria. Now, lots and lots of grants and aid have been pumped into this continent of Africa. We have Oxfam, we have UNICEF, we have, you said, just name it, into the continent. It's all about trillions of dollars right now. But it's like we're not seeing the impact of all these grants, aids, and sometimes loan in this country.
You will not see it.
What do you think is responsible?
You will not see it. And what is responsible is nothing but greed. You find out this money has gotten to the source. This fund has been released. Go and investigate. But the man at the point of disbursement, for instance, a grant of $500 million given, right? Either in terms of either in aids, in material, or in cash to get certain projects executed. I don't know whether you have visited some World Bank projects around us here. What you see there is just nothing but a regrettable situation. Now standards are set. If you go there and look at the original documents, the specifications given, what you have on ground will be a far cry from what you see on paper. Because the man there who is to do the final job, there will be so much compromise. You find out, sorry I'm digressing a little bit.
Yeah.
Go and look at NDDC projects vis-a-vis Julius Berger, Domex, Cetraco jobs. The same as FAT, is it not the same as FAT in that way? But there is no NDDC projects that ever stand the test of time.
All right, let's
apology. That is my opinion.
Your opinion.
Okay,
Look at the names right now. Let's just leave that aspect.
Okay,
yes.
because what I'm trying to say in essence is this. Along the line, in the line of execution of projects. There's so much compromises. So much compromises and cuttings here and there. those whose responsibility have been placed on, they betray the confidence that is placed on that office or the seat that they occupy.
Wow.
But I tell people, it's like somebody who is throwing a stone into the market. You may not get the end result today. Maybe your uncle, your auntie, your mom, or your sibling that the stone is going to meet in the market.
Interesting, interesting, interesting. It's
These
all
grants
about-
were given out of magnanimity and interest for humanity. But unfortunately, the man who is to implement, the man the responsibility has been placed on, has betrayed the responsibility placed on him, the confidence placed on him to say you can do this.
We're talking about trillions, trillions of dollars. As at 2018, the record by so many
It's mind-boggling.
organizations, mind-boggling, given to Africa as a continent to develop, but it's like dropping a stone, a pebble in the mighty ocean. What is really happening? Politically speaking, 2018, you scored on 25%. Economically speaking, what's your score out of 100?
My brother, if just go around, just take a look at all the nations. Economically, we didn't do more than 20%.
20%.
I'm telling you.
So it's like a fail mark from
It's a
both
fail
angles.
mark.
Wow.
If we are passed, right, you will see it in your life, in your lifestyle at home.
At home.
What is the economic position or status of the ordinary man? To the extent that Nigeria, we are good at taking first anyway, be it positive or negative.
All right.
That the poorest in the world,
Thank you. Thank you.
the poorest in the world,
Our
if you
time,
want to trace them, come to Nigeria, you will meet them here.
our time is up. Our time is up. But we'll get there eventually. We'll get there eventually. We couldn't, have enough or get enough time to talk about security, talk about agriculture, talk about health. You be the one to do that analysis. You've seen records, you've heard reports on these issues, on this sector. Africa in 2018, what's your score? We just visited or talked about two aspects, politics and economy. From what Henry Adima said, he talked about politics 25%, economy 20%. And that isn't cool. Not cool at all. Much is still needed to be done for Africa to come or to be where they ought to be. Thank you so much, sir, for coming on today's show. I appreciate your wonderful analysis. I really appreciate your comment. Happy New Year. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming.
Always my pleasure.
Okay, that's it from us here in the studio. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I just pray that 2019 will be better for Africa as a continent. Bye for now.